by abandoning you. Surely you're lucky in a way
Just a minute, guys.
that he made the decision that he made. I was raised in a home where forgiveness was a daily part of life. And I've really struggled being raised in
Just a
the
minute, guys.
Christian home that I was raised in, that taught and preached and lived and depicted forgiveness, love and forgiveness, love and forgiveness. You know, if you don't forgive, you're not hurting the person that you're holding that grudge against. You're actually holding yourself as a person. I forgive him. I forgive him.
Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to the first webinar by the Seamedu Photography Club.
You see that.
And, and on behalf of the Seamedu Photography Department, I would like to thank Mr. Sushil Chikane, who is here today to give a webinar on photography. So, I request our club president, Anjali, to take it from here. Okay, Anjali,
Thank
please.
you so much, Alok sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, participants, students, and my dear colleagues. It gives me a great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome on behalf of the Department of Photography, Sumedu School of Pro Expressionism, and to say how grateful we are all to have accepted our invitation and convened for the storytelling through images. SPC is a student-driven club and helps our students to become better future photography professionals. The motto of this club is to contribute, collaborate, and appreciate, where we all students come together and do some kind of activities. This event would give us some insight about how exactly travel and wildlife photography is. How can we be expressive and tell a story through the images we click? So we come to the speaker. Mr. Sushil Chikane is a wildlife and travel photographer who has an experience of 15 years in the field. He is a founder and the director of Journeys Photographer Club and Photo Stories. He is a researcher, trainer, naturalist, and a writer. His images are published in many newspapers, websites, and magazines. He is awarded as the Best Photographer Award at DCP Annual Photography Contest in 2015. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Sushil and talk us about his experience in the field.
Hey, first of all, okay, let's not wait any longer because this is taking too long. Uh, First of all, I would love to thank you all for inviting me. I see such lovely people here today. I see a lot of familiar faces also. Thank you, Alok, for introducing me. Thank you, Bala sir. I also see Purva here and Mansi as well. Thank you guys for inviting me here. I'm not going to stretch this with my introduction. Should we start with our session directly? I don't think we need our video, my video at least, because I'm going to share a lot of images with you. So should we start with it?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. If you could make me a co-host, I can share my screen, I hope. Yeah. Or if you give me the access
Yes.
to screen share.
Yes, I have made you the.
Yeah, you can start sharing.
Perfect. Thank you. Good. So before we get into the stories, these stories indirectly also reflect how wildlife or outdoor photography happened to me, and how my evolution as a photographer happened, and how it has taken me to what I do today. So wildlife photography was not my first preference in life, and now this, I know this is a little shocking, but this is true. I come from a wildlife sciences background. I have a master's in biodiversity, right? So I had no plans to be a creative guy. I had no plans to do photography. I had no plans to teach photography, as a matter of fact. So, but how did it happen? It happened by an accident. Long back, during I was doing a master's, one of our field visits was to this beautiful landscape that you see in front of you. These are the lateritic plateaus of Maharashtra. They are known by different names. Some of them called sadas because the rock has decomposed. Some of them are known for their beautiful flowers like cast. That too is a lateritic plateau. Some of them are known for the forts they have. Now, this picture is clicked from one of these plateaus close to Satara, which is around 120 kilometers from Pune, south of Pune, in monsoon. And this is how stunning the place looks. I was here not for photography actually, but I was here for a botany field visit. And I never liked plants to study specifically because they are always accessible, right? I was always the animal guy who would go into the forest, look for animals, and work on the species that I come across. So I was here for botany visit, and while I was here, uh, this is what I saw. The moment I got down from the car, it was stunning. Even for a guy who is not into botany and plants, this is how stunning it was. And how could I not photograph it? Surprisingly, whatever pictures I'm showing you, to your surprise, would be the ones clicked by point and shoot camera. Because obviously, I didn't look forward to buying a DSLR that time. They were also pretty expensive. But still, one thing that I did was document it. So I documented whatever I came across, even with the point and shoot camera. I was particularly keen on visiting this plateau for this particular, although the class was there for botany, I was here to see this lizard. Now, what is so special? A lot of people find them eerie, they find them slimy, they find them dirty, and I wouldn't discourage them. They are a little scary, but scary because we don't know much about them, because we haven't seen them closely, and this is how pretty they can be. Uh, why this particular lizard is because of its name. This lizard is called uh, the Satara ground gecko. Why it is so special? Because in the entire world, this lizard is found only on this one plateau. And it is so rare that a lot of people had not even heard of it. And me being a wildlife guy, I wanted to find it, I wanted to photograph it. So I documented, I wanted to document it as well, made even if it meant it was with a point and shoot camera. Also, the speciality of it was this was a recently described species. It was a new species to the world. Nobody knew that these species even existed. The other cool thing about this was this species was described only on the basis of females. They never found a male. So I always wondered, where are the males? Are there any males? And for all these questions were in my mind when I got down from the bus and I started looking at the surroundings. And while my batchmates were looking at flowers, I was actually turning rocks looking for the lizard, and I came across the snake. Now, this is the soft scale viper. It is one of the 4 most venomous snakes in India. I was fortunate enough to find it. I kept a safe distance and clicked this shot. And then one of my professors who was there, who knew I am not interested in botany, but I'm there for the reptiles or the area, actually took me to the side and he told me a story. He told me a story of this snake and another snake. The other snake was Liobeltis calamaria, the lesser striped neck snake, a snake that was discovered by the Britishers but never seen after that. And that story begins with this professor who, when he was in college, visited the same plateau and found this snake, which is the soft-scale viper, with a huge tummy. So either it had eaten something or she was pregnant. But when they caught the snake, when snakes who have recently eaten and photographers try to click them or people try to catch them, they immediately regurgitate as in vomit whatever they've eaten, because that lets go of the excess body weight and they can move faster. But this female didn't regurgitate anything, which meant she was pregnant, and nobody knew whether this snake gives 5 babies or 10 babies. Also, it was cool because this is one of the very few snakes in India that does not lay eggs, that gives birth to live young ones, and that's why it's called viviparous. So they caught this snake, kept it in a terrarium in the field station in Satara, and 2 days later, what they saw shocked them. Because one morning when they woke up, the snake was slim again. It was thin, and they had another dead snake in the same box. So what it had actually eaten was another snake, and that snake, when they tried, and they had never seen a snake like that. When they tried to identify it, it turned out to be the lesser striped neck snake, a snake that was never photographed before, a snake that was never seen before. But the unfortunate part was it was almost decomposed, so they couldn't do anything with it. After that, this professor spent most of his life looking for the snake and never found it. This even intrigued me more to go and look for animals on that plateau. And to our surprise, when I turned my next rock, I found this snake. And the same professor who told me this story yelled at me saying, "You need to catch this snake." So we finally got the snake. We photographed this picture there itself. And this is the same snake. This is the first ever photograph of the snake ever clicked. This is the striped neck snake. Now, again, if you see this picture, it is not with the DSLR. It is with the point and shoot camera. But it got published in more than 8 books by now. It has been published in more than 5 magazines by now. Why? Because of the rarity of the species. So what happens in wildlife is you can get away with the camera quality, or you can get away with respect to your image quality. If your subject is really extraordinary, either it has to be super rare, or if you have covered a moment which is super rare. So this inspired me to take up an expedition for myself. Then I went out, bought a DSLR during my master's, and I decided, okay, these are the plateaus that I need to understand. If these plateaus have so many interesting animals, I need to document them with my DSLR. So I stepped out, and for the next 2 years, I was exploring these plateaus. Because if in one trip I came across 2 species that were barely photographed, it gave me an opportunity to understand that, okay, there must be a lot more rare animals here, and they might get published. So even with a point and shoot camera, my images started getting published. Then when I bought a DSLR, I stepped out and I started understanding the place. So these are the slopes on the sides of the plateau. So I realized the animals that could not be found on the plateau may be found on the slopes because it has a lot more soil. It has a lot more trees as well compared to the plateau. And then also what happened is I started experimenting with my gear. I bought a basic lens, and which is a 50 mm lens, and an 1855, and I got this shot. I came back home, went through my books, and I realized, oh, this is another rare sighting, because this is the 5-striped skink. This picture became special mainly because this picture got used to publish a research paper. This lizard before this was only found in Nashik and Pune, nowhere else. And when we found it in Satara, it became the first ever photographic documentation of this lizard from Satara district, which later got published as a scientific paper as well. So smaller findings like these kept encouraging me to take my photography and my exploration skills to the next level. And as we explored, we found a lot cooler animals. At night, when we stepped out, we found this green wine snake that was perched in the mushrooms, waiting for some tiny bats or birds to fly by, which it can feed on. With time, I started also upgrading my gear. Today, what I see is a lot of young people buy expensive gear just because they think buying expensive gear means you might click good pictures, but that is not necessary. You need to upgrade your gear when you feel it is necessary to upgrade your gear. Like in this picture, if you see the funky looking thing in front of my lens is because I couldn't afford a macro lens. So then I was looking around, I tried some local filters, they weren't up to the mark. And then a friend of mine from US sent this to me saying, you need to try this. This is the Renox macro filter. When you clip it onto any lens, it basically inverts your lens into a macro lens. So what you see in the picture is nothing but an 1855 mm lens with a Renox on it. So that inverted my lens into a macro lens. And that helped me get shots like these, which is the green wine snake again, but and a very different angle. It got me shots like these, the beautiful bamboo pit viper at night, and the very, very pretty and elegant cat snake. It gets its name because of the vertical pupil of the eye. And then I thought, okay, I need to understand the land better. So I bought this tiny drone for myself, and we started flying it around. And that gave us a picture like this when we realized this plateau is not actually one plateau, it is in layers. The animals on top are not found at the bottom, are not found on the tiny bushes that you see clinging onto the rocks here. And then finally one day we ended up photographing the male of the Satara ground gecko, the first photo ever. And because it was so rare, it obviously got published as well. And then we started introducing the reptile world to common people because people are scared of them. People find them ugly. And that's why I started clicking images like these to prove to the world that not all lizards are ugly, not all reptiles are scary. Like the case, in this case, you have the flamboyant fan-throated lizards. For 2 weeks a year in summer, males flaunt their throats like this to impress the girls in that area. And that is the time when they not just flaunt their throats, but they also literally act like Romeos. This is another guy who was posing like this while a female was walking past him. So then I started creating stories. I started understanding my subjects, and because I was spending a lot of time with them, I could document emotions that they were emoting like this. This is one incident when I was photographing another male. While this male runs right to me and poses in front of me. For this, I didn't even follow it. I didn't do anything. He came and posed for me. And then through my stories, I tried to connect dots in the missing links. What is happening here is something very, very intelligent. So as a wildlife photographer, I started sharing stories of what is happening. On the other side of the lizard is actually a female. Now, because the wind being so high, the throat couldn't be erect. He couldn't showcase it to the female properly. But he also did not want to disappoint the girl. So what he was doing is, from the other side, he was actually supporting the throat so that she doesn't realize that it is not erect, it is not tight, he's not the alpha there. So now we knew, and this is the first documentation ever, that animals are not dumb. They are pretty smart. And stuff like this kept encouraging me to go out more and explore them more. And that brought me back to the snake with which the entire story started, the soft scale viper. This is another picture that I clicked, but this time with the DSLR and a macro lens. And this is finally the good quality image of the rare snake, which is the lesser striped neck snake, which is no longer elusive to science, which is no longer elusive to photographers. And then as we dug into it, we found a lot more cooler variations. One is this, which has no stripes. There is another one with 5 or 6 stripes on it. And then just when I thought, okay, this place has nothing more to offer to me, I found this. The first ever photograph in the world of a lizard from India walking on water. This has been published in almost every wildlife magazine in the world. And again, new to science. So the more I stepped out, the more nature fascinated me, the more it inspired me to document stuff. And with time, it gave me a reason to upgrade my gear as well. This is my second story. I would take your questions at the end when I'm done with a few more stories. Okay. Now let's come to the second story as a travel photographer and as a wildlife photographer. Now this is a story about Ladakh. Now when I say Ladakh, this is what everybody imagines. Ladakh nowadays has content creators like me. Then it has monasteries in which I'm sitting, and it has the great landscapes in front of me. But what people don't know is, as you spend more time in any place, not just Ladakh, you get to see a lot more of the place. And if you are a photographer, you have to spend time in that place to understand it better. And only then can you actually make images which are different. Because this is what people think of. Ladakh is just landscapes and snow and prayer flags, or taking a picture in front of the monastery. But what people don't know is this, the rich culture it has. Now this is at Tikshe Monastery. This is in Leh. What people do here is they go click a picture with a monastery, they take a picture with a prayer flag, they take a picture of the architecture, but they miss out this very, very interesting thing, which is the monastery has a school for upcoming monks. So all these boys are being trained to become monks as they grow up. And this is in the basement of that monastery. I hear, as I spoke to one of the senior monastery heads there, he's the one who told me that, why don't you come visit our school? You might actually like it. And I spent time with the kids there, and I got some stunning pictures, which eventually got published. And they got published just because I took the effort of talking to people, of communicating with them. And that is where pictures like these happened. This one, and this one, And then even this one, because people think Ladakh is all poor people, it is only monasteries and tourism, but they forget it also has a rich culture. Like this picture is of a tribe that actually walks from Tibet to Ladakh every year in winter, and they camp by the hot water springs of Ladakh. This is clicked in minus 35 degrees Celsius, and they still come to India, stay here with their sheep. So these pictures recently are getting published in the Banff Mountain Film Festival, Canada, as the story of the tribes from the Himalayas. And stories like these, like what pictures like these make us realize how privileged we are. Like for example, why is this picture so special? Is basically the kid in the picture. If you see onto it, it is actually having a stick of a lollipop which a tourist gave to it. Now this lollipop was given to him 3 months before this picture was clicked. But because he had never seen a lollipop in his life, he actually, although he finished the lollipop immediately, but he kept that sucking onto that stick with the whistle onto it because that was something rare for him. He had never seen it before. And this gives you an idea about how privileged the modern society is. And that is what I try to do as a travel photographer. I try and share stories. I try and make people analyze and think where they are and what they are doing. And obviously it doesn't start easy. People are not accepting because we are not inclusive, right? So this is a picture that one of my friends clicked during my earlier visit to Ladakh, where a local is wondering, what am I doing? What is the thing that I even have in my hand? So what I have in my hand is actually a 5D Mark IV with a 150-600 Tamron lens. I'm actually photographing one of the largest birds in India, the golden eagle. Now these birds are big enough to even lift antelopes and goats from the mountains. And I was lucky enough to see one at Cardona, which is the highest motorable road in the world. Soon it won't be. There's another one coming up. And locals had no clue. They had seen these big birds, but they couldn't like value them because it was something that they'd seen every day. But a wildlife photographer like me found it pretty cool that I actually found this bird. And then I made few friends. One of my friends there, who is a friend for life now, is Juma. He comes from the Sumur village, which is on the way to Siachen. And I met Zahur, his childhood friend. So Juma and Zahur, basically Zahur is a taxi driver and Juma is a mountaineer. So with them, I sat together. I started talking to them about something that they had never thought they would discuss, which is wildlife of Ladakh. Ladakh is known for sightseeing. Ladakh is known for culture. Ladakh is known for adventure sports. But what people don't know is Ladakh has some crazy wildlife, from a snow leopard to the Tibetan wolf. It has everything. And these guys, since the childhood, have seen it, but they just didn't value it because they didn't know how rare it was. So when we sat with them, they were pretty intrigued. And with them, we started exploring the wildlife and the interior culture of Ladakh. So they took me to places that tourists usually won't even go to. This is Juma, super high in the Himalayas. This is clicked at around 20,000 feet, which is super high. What we were doing is we were looking at mountain goats. We were hiding behind a rock and looking for mountain goats. So what my career does is it takes me to such cool places that probably as a tourist I would have never gone. They also took me to the high sand dunes of Ladakh, which is the cold desert. This is the Sumur sand dune. Here I was looking out for some great landscapes, but by the time we started walking out of there, it got dark, and we came across something which is new to the world. It is still to be named. We will probably name it after the village Sumur. We actually found a new species of an animal there by mistake. And then they even took me to their own smaller monasteries. These are monasteries that people don't visit. These are monasteries that are not probably open to even tourists. And that got me such pictures, which are very intricate, very intimate. And then last year came a very cool proposition, which is, why don't you come over and see Ladakh in winter? Now, this is something most people haven't not even imagined. This is the time when people don't even think they can go to visit Ladakh. Because till now, it was very intimate. People used to stare at us as tourists. But now, one thing that I did was I started going to the villages every year. So earlier people used to stare at us about who's this guy, where is he from, why is he here? Today I go, I have this reaction. All of them know me, they know me by name. Every time they see a cool animal, they tell me saying, hey Baba, when you were in Pune, we saw this. Maybe you should, when now that you're here, you can go and photograph this animal. And then they started sharing their traditional knowledge, which their ancestors had given us. Now, this is a picture of a Himalayan ibex on a rock cliff. This is a picture of the blue sheep on the Blue Mountains. And then they even told us places where animals are not rare. In fact, they don't even run from you. They are not scared of humans. This is the ibex who was very cutely observing me. So usually photographers have to object the subject, but here the subject was a lot more interested in me. And then they even took me to their primitive hunting grounds where they no longer hunt, where animals are free. Animals can chill the way this Himalayan marmot is doing. This guy is basking in the sun. He comes out of his burrow in winter, and in the sun, he's lying down on the rock the way we guys do in Goa when we go and tan ourselves over there. And this is another picture of the Tibetan hare, another hunting ground that was previously used to hunt these animals. They no longer hunt there, and that's why animals are very bold, very common nowadays. Also, when you visit places, don't depend upon previous knowledge. Also, look for things where they might be, but people haven't looked for. Now, this is a cafe after Changla. Now, Changla is the pass that you cross to go to Pangong Lake. Now, when I say Pangong Lake, everybody can associate because they've seen Three Idiots. A lot of people who go to Ladakh, it is a must visit place. Now, on the way there, people are so excited to go take a selfie by the Pangong Lake that they miss out a lot of important things en route. Now, the moment you start driving towards Pangong, once you start getting down the Changla pass, is a tiny cafe called Relax, because he couldn't write relax properly. I stop there every year for a chai, and that chai time also gives me time to put up a time lapse. Why this place? Because this gives you a beautiful composition. It gives you a stream which has orchids in it and mountains and clouds behind it. So you get some stunning landscapes and cloudscapes over there. And while one camera was clicking the time lapse and the cloudscapes for me, I saw this tiny cute animal running around. This is called a pika. Now, it wasn't the first time I saw a pika. I actually wasn't even going to click a picture. It was Zahur, my driver, who said, "Sir ji, aap ek photo le lo. Pata nahi aapke use mein aaye baad mein." So I clicked this picture, and till date, I thank Zahur for making me click this picture, because I had only seen the Himalayan pikas by now. But this became the first ever picture of the large eared pika in the world. And that is why anytime anybody publishes a book, anybody wants to write anything of the animal, they by default have to buy this picture from me, because this is the only picture of this animal in the world. And it was a complete accident. Like how people think wildlife photographers have to spend hours. Yes, we do, but not every time. Sometimes we find animals by accident like this. And this is also the same animal that inspired the cartoon character Pikachu. Then comes another subset of a story, which is why it is crucial for you as photographers to talk to people when you visit a place. When I go to Sumur every year, now people know me there by my name. I know them by their name. They tell me about animal sightings. They tell me about cultural things that are happening. This picture and the picture which is following up would not be possible if I had not spoken to people there. A farmer, this is last year when I was there, a farmer called me saying, "Sushil bhai, you should come. There's this animal, cool looking animal. हमारे यहाँ पे locally कुछ और बोलते हैं. Maybe it is something that might interest you. It has a den in these bushes. It comes out morning and evening, and that is the time when we should come and photograph." So I went there one morning, and luckily the animal came out of its burrow and it posed nicely for us. This is the Himalayan mountain weasel. And the picture is not rare, the animal is not rare, but for me it was the first time. But then when we were photographing Dalai Lama, because the same evening Dalai Lama ji was here, and I ended up meeting him every year because our time of visit coincides every year. I was actually photographing some portraits. The same farmer calls me saying, "Sushil bhai, you need to come. There's something very, very different happening today." So I like, what's happening? I like this animal that never wanders off in the daytime. is actually walking around quite a bit. It is running haphazardly. The reason they don't come out during the day is basically eagles kill them, kites kill them, falcons kill them, even crows found at that altitude, the ravens, they also kill them. So they usually don't step out, but this one was running haphazardly. So we went there to see it. What was happening was this female, she used to run, disappear, and come back with something in his mouth every time she came back. And I thought maybe she's hunting. But then when she did this for more than 10 times, we had a doubt. I mean, no animal hunts so many animals unnecessarily. So, but the problem was with so much clutter, I couldn't even photograph it properly. But then another friend, which is Juma, he said, Sushil bhai, there's this one place where she stops, she looks at us, and then she runs again. So now we're concentrating only on this one place. And finally, I ended up getting one clean shot of this female and what she was carrying. And what she was carrying surprised us and shocked us completely, because it was this. What had happened was the previous night there was a flash flood, and her previous den got flooded, and that is the den which had all her babies in it. So if you see her mouth properly, she's actually carrying all her babies to the new den. And this became again the first ever picture of this animal clicked. This is the Himalayan mountain weasel with the tiny newborn baby in her mouth. And now every year I go there, they show me a new story. This time the monks called us to, and this is me photographing an agama which lives in the rocks of the monastery. Recently, they also called me to visit and stay with them in the monastery in winter. A very, very different experience. This is something that I don't think a lot of people have experienced in their life. This is Ladakh that looks very different. This is clip from Changla. This place in summer, when we all go there, is green, is yellow because they're growing mustard, and blue skies. But the same place in winter has this brown and gray tone to it. And the same place, which is full of food stalls and tourists in summer, in winter looks like this, abandoned with nothing but the gods and the dogs. And this is a Bhutia dog with its pup, curiously wondering who are these idiots that are here in minus 20 degrees Celsius. And Ladakh is very, very elusive. This picture, it looks dry, it looks barren, but the temperature was actually minus 20 when I was photographing it. And this is the famous Pangong Lake in winter. I have not seen a lot of pictures from this place because everybody goes there in summer. When we say Ladakh, we think of blue waters, we think of green waters. But this is Ladakh and Pangong completely frozen. In fact, when this picture was clicked, we were driving on the lake. So this is clicked from the car. Because there were no roads, we were actually driving on the frozen lake, where one tracker had to walk in front of us and check if the ice was thick enough for the car to be driven on it. And what I got there also was very different in winter. Ducks that are usually swimming are walking because the water is frozen. This duck is actually walking on ice here. And a lot of rare animals that go high up in the mountains in summer also come down, like this one. These are the Tibetan gazelles. Very few places in the world where you find them. We got the scary Tibetan wolf. We got the Tibetan partridge. And this bird I had seen every time I went to Ladakh, but never got a picture because they're extremely skittish. But while we were driving on the ice in Ladakh, we realized there's a flock next to us. And this picture is actually not clicked with a massive wildlife telelens. It is clicked with the 1855 kit lens. Why 1850 kit lens? Because we could go that close to the birds. These birds were not flying. They were not moving because they were frozen in the ice. It was clicked in minus 39 degrees Celsius. The only things that moved were the eyelids and nothing else. But pictures like these and expeditions like these come at a cost as photographers. They look glamorous, they look awesome when you come back, but this is the reality of it. This is a picture of mine clicked half an hour after I got a picture of this bird. So what's happening in this picture? This is the army hospital of Hanli village, which is near the China border. What you need to see in this picture is not the roof, not my face, but my fingers. My fingers are 4 times their normal size. While I was clicking the bird, I realized that I couldn't change my camera setting because of the massive layers of gloves. I was wearing two gloves, one my inner thin layer and the outer big layer for -39. But when I took off one glove layer to change my camera settings, within the next 1.5 minutes, my fingers started swelling to an extent that the gloves were so tight they had to be chopped off in the army hospital. And my fingers started turning blue and black, and half an hour more, and the doctors would have had to chop all 10 fingers of mine because I was getting frostbite. So when you step out, make sure you are safe, because only when you are safe, you will be able to document more stuff. That brings us to our second story. Uh, the third story, and this is a quick one. I'm not going to get into details of this one. This is a recent one. This is from this February, in fact. It is about the expedition to the Red Panda land, which is the Eastern Himalayas. What you see in the picture is the Land Rover from Second World War. Our expedition started from this village, which is Manimanjan. Manimanjan is the last place in Sikkim in India where we cannot take, beyond which we cannot take our own cars. We have to leave our cars here and hop into this. So what you see up is actually not bags with my clothes, but all those are bags with my camera gear. Because we are also filming there, we are also photographing it. So we had multiple sets of gears that we are carrying. And these are the only cars that are allowed to go beyond Manimanjan and into the Singalila Wildlife Sanctuary, which is shared partly by India and partly by Nepal. This is just before we started the expedition. This is how I was photographing the birds in that area while they were loading my luggage onto the Land Rover. And this place was my base camp. The greenhouse that you see is where I lived for a month. This village is the last village of Nepal. It is called Kayakata. Surprisingly, although we call it a village, but there are only two families here. That's it. The road, which is at the bottom over here, goes to Nepal. The road on top goes to India. So basically, my courtyard had India and Nepal both in it. My house was in Nepal, and this side where the car is, that is India. Looks pretty, but was pretty scary for a person if you are not used to living a life like this. There was no electricity. We had a generator that we could use only for an hour a day, that to primarily to charge our cameras, nothing else. No internet, not even camera coverage. We had to drive 30 kilometers just to call up our families. But this became our base camp. And this picture is not even clicked early morning. It is not even clicked in the evening. This is at 11 in the morning. So these are called cloud forests. The visibility is very bad here. You barely get 2 to 3 hours a day to do some camera work, because after this it gets covered by fog. But we had some stunning views. This is the view from my room when I looked down into the hills, and when I looked up, I had a view like this. What you see in the picture is Kanchenjunga. The first sun rays used to fall on Kanchenjunga, and the second used to fall on Everest, which is on the left. I unfortunately couldn't cover it in this picture. And why were we there? We were there for this, the very cute red panda. But it is not easy. People think you will go there and the red pandas will be waiting for you. No. Also, this expedition is not for unfit people. You have to walk. There are no safaris, and you need to be in the best of your shape when you are doing such expeditions. And for days we couldn't see a red panda, but I wasn't disheartened because I was photographing other wildlife like these birds, the laughing thrushes, barwings, other thrushes. And then I realized, okay, if I need to find this animal, I need to put a team together. So we had the team from here, which is one of our students from MIT, Devdutt, and another senior, Mandar. So Mandar was there to video film the project. Devdutt was there to photograph the red panda. And in the background, in the center, here you have Prithvi, who is a leading landscape photographer from India. In fact, if you see last month's Smart Photography, all the landscape pictures published there are his. And then we had Shantanu from West Bengal, who's a red panda expert. And then we have Yogesh, who's a bird expert from Pune. And then we had a team of local trackers. These were the best cooks, the best trackers. Why best trackers? Because these were ex-panda hunters. Since their ancestral time, they've been hunting red pandas. But recently they realized, okay, there are very few red pandas left in the world, and we now need to protect them. And what we do is through ecotourism, by sending wildlife photographers to these forests and using these trackers as guides, we have convinced them that we will pay you to save the red pandas instead of killing them, which they have agreed. So when we spoke to them, they gave us a lot of insights. They told us, okay, we need to change our strategy. We need to look for the red panda in a very, very different style. And we started splitting in team. This is Mandar with one team photographing the top forest of this area. And while he was on top, I was looking into the valleys. And that is where I bumped into these two cute little yellow-throated martins in snow. And every day I used to go and I realized these two live here. So I used to go and sit far from them. And every day they started coming closer to an extent. Last day they became so
Sushil sir, we cannot hear you. Your voice is not audible.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, because the electricity just went, so I had to jump my internet to my Geo dongle.
No,
Okay,
no problems.
cool. Perfect. So finally the animals, so the more time you spend in a place, not just the people, but even the animals start trusting you. The first picture of this animal that I clicked, so the first picture was clicked with a 600 lens, and that is how far they were. By the fifth day, they became so confident that I had to click them on 50 And then we had our data, then we had a study done, and we said, okay, now let's finally look for the red panda. We know how to find it. And we had to go to such tough terrain, sit here for hours with ticks and leeches and other parasites. But we were so motivated that we had to find a red panda. And then eventually we did. Our first red panda, sleeping in -1 degree Celsius, cozily in a bracket of a tree. And when the sun came out, it finally started moving around. And because we were stay put at one place for 2 hours, this female really got confident. And she actually came close to me in this nice, well-lit image. But also what looks fun and what looks adventurous has its, like the Ladakh story, has its own side. This is a video that I took 2 minutes after we clicked the red panda.
So we couldn't hear the audio.
We can't? Okay, okay. Let me just redo this. Okay, let me try playing it again for you. Tell me if there's a glitch.
Morning. Well spent. Spotting a panda.
Yeah, it's audible.
No, it's audible.
Especially for people like us who are from the plains. You can see Mandy and his condition. And then we have Sutri walking with our local team. Sutri, how are you doing?
So although people celebrate our life, they find it cool, but this is the actual field side of our lives. It is not easy. It is not tough. Here, I was taking this video at 19,000 feet, which is pretty high. The oxygen was low, and the terrain you've seen in the previous picture is extremely steep. And what we try and do at every place that I particularly go is I teach my skill set to the locals, and they teach me their traditional skill sets. Like these guys taught me the skill of tracking a red panda, and in return I was here in this picture teaching them how to use cameras. In fact, we ended up keeping one camera to them because then they could document a lot more wildlife till the next time I go there, and they can share these pictures with the world through me. So that's my recent trip and my recent story of red panda. I'm going to do 2 more stories and then we'll open this panel for discussion. This is called the School of Outdoors. Now, this is another very cool place most people haven't visited. This is Pangolika Wildlife Sanctuary in East Sikkim. Uh, most of this place is actually above the clouds. So what you see in the picture is not rare. This is how it looks every day. This is the view from my room. I was staying in a homestay there. This is Zuluk, and this is again a cloud forest. It is above the clouds most of the time, but this is how dark it is. So photography has its own problems. As a photographer, it is tough because light is very, very poor. No matter if you use full frames or you use lenses with 1.4, 1.8, 2.8 apertures, light is always going to be so low. So you really have to push your own skill set to get some decent shots here. And the beauty of Sikkim is it gives you different types of forest in one place. Like here, I am with my local tracking team in a dry deciduous forest. Deciduous because it obviously, like the picture, shed all its leaves. But 100 meters higher, and suddenly it is this cold, where suddenly the clothes change. Here you can see the hat. Here the woolen cap comes out. Even higher, and it is so cold that even the flags are frozen. And because it has so much diversity, it has a lot of variety in the animals as well. I got this. This is a squirrel, but the size of a cat. This is the hoary-bellied squirrel. Little higher, I found this beautiful crow-sized bird, which is the green magpie. Beautiful bird. A little higher, around the snow line, I got another cute pika. Again, first time for me, the Sikkim pika. A little higher in the snow line, and I got the martins in the snow this time. But what we realized is, unlike most of the wildlife places, Sikkim was not too sensitive about the wildlife. Why? Mainly because they didn't know they had wildlife like this. When we say Sikkim, people go there for sightseeing and street photography and landscapes. But it was high time people knew there was a problem. Red pandas were hunted there, or they were being eaten by dogs. Because unlike what we think, red pandas don't spend most of the time on trees. They actually spend them most of the time on the ground walking in the bamboo forest. And dogs are the biggest predators, not leopard, not clouded leopard. It is the dogs that actually feed on them. So we started a project of community conservation where we are starting a school of wildlife and photography free of cost for local school kids and the villages there. This project will be conducted here. This is the homestay called Mandala Homestay, very, very close to my heart, because this is not because of the location, but because of this man. This is a monk who runs this homestay not to make money, but at the base of the homestay, like if you see here, these two floors are used for tourists, and these two floors are actually an orphanage for kids. So everything that is raised when it comes to funds from the homestay is actually used to fund the kids' education and food here in the homestay. Plus, Lamaji also runs a school for 200 kids free of cost. And this gave me a reason, okay, we need to do something with Lamaji. We need to, because people listen to him, because he is a teacher himself. Maybe through him, through his education, we can start saving the wildlife of Sikkim. So every day when I went into the jungle and came back, I started showing him my videos and my pictures and started discussing wildlife. And to my surprise, he knew every species I photographed. Now what we had to do is we started including this with the locals. Now these are roadside laborers who work for the army to build the roads at that high altitude. We started gifting them binoculars. We started gifting them field guides. On Sundays, we started keeping schools for them. So this is them, and you can see the change in their behavior. Earlier, they used to be smoking and sitting and chit-chatting between their afternoon break. But now what they are doing is, after they're done with the lunch, one of the ladies actually is using a binocular that we had gifted her to find mountain goats on the other side of the mountain. And after this picture, she called us, we went there and we photographed a very, very elusive animal called the Himalayan Sero, which basically looks, the face looks like a wildebeest, but the size is of a horse, a massive mountain goat. So now what is happening is, through photography, it is not just a medium to become famous. It is not just a medium to share stories. It also became a medium to bring a social change in a place. Today, we are starting a school for kids like these who will go out with Lamaji, who will probably go on trails with me. This is a trail that we conducted for the village kids there, where I'm explaining them the scorpion found in their forest. And then as they got interested, they started showing me a lot more animals that I did not know existed. This is not even clicked in the forest. This is clicked from somebody's house. A kid from the village called me saying, "Bhaiya, aap hamare yahan aao. ये जानवर आता है रोज हमारे पेड़ पे फल खाने." And in the picture, you see a Bhutan giant flying squirrel. Yes, it glides from one tree to the other. That's why it is called a flying squirrel. And this is an animal people spend their lives to find or in search of. And some kid just casually called me and showed it to me with ease. And why did this happen is communication. So as photographers, next time when you step out, not just for wildlife, maybe for your travel photography, maybe for your landscape photography, or even portraits, talk to people. It will make your life easy. It will give you a lot more stories when you come back. This is our school of outdoors. And that brings us to our last story, which is living with the headhunters. This story is about Nagaland. When I say Nagaland, this is what we think Nagaland is. There are tribals who are scary, but what people don't know is Nagaland has one of the best forests in the world. Dense, evergreen, untouched forest, with something that people like us who are from tier 1 are not used to see. And this is actually a staged picture. This is not a real thing that was happening. We staged it because people want to see something like this. They expect me to go through something like this when we say Nagaland, where there is a headhunter who's going to chop off my head. But it is not the case. This picture is clicked in one of the remotest places in our country, in a village called Sky. On the left is an ex-headhunter, an animal poacher, but now a very close friend of ours, Bokato. And the other guy is a scientist who studies the wildlife of that forest, who actually invited me to document it for him, Yatish. So when I landed at Kohima, sorry, not Kohima, Dimapur airport, because that's the only place in the valley and that's the only place where aeroplane can land. Some of the stories that we heard about Nagaland were true. Like they eat probably any and everything that moves. As I started driving towards our field station, this came to reality. This is a shack next to the road where they were selling pineapples, and I suddenly see something fluttering next to it. So I stopped the car, I went there, I got this shot. What they are selling are live pigeons, one of the rarest in India. These are the wedge-tailed green pigeons. Some more distance, and then they were selling some rare rats from the forest. But what people don't realize is it also has a rich culture. If we talk about them eating animals and call them scary, so are us who eat non-veg over here. It is just that we have poultry, we have fish access, and they have access to wildlife. But with time, they realize that excess hunting is leading to decline in wildlife, and that's why the forests are no longer sustainable for them. So now we had a pack of headhunters who called us to their village to, one, study their wildlife, tell us how they can protect it, and for me to document their rich culture and their rich wildlife. And unlike what people thought, I did not get kidnapped there. That was not the toughest part. The toughest part was reaching the villages. Monsoons, you cannot drive there because the roads are completely washed off. And in winter also the roads are like this. This is not a road in the forest. This is the state highway, and that is how scary it is. This is when our car was almost drifting into the valley because of the wet soil. Of snakes and rare animals started here itself. Even before we reached our field station, we got a first snake which was crushed by a vehicle. And when I took this picture, it turned out to be the first picture of this snake from Nagaland. This snake was never reported from Nagaland. People thought it is found only in Arunachal Pradesh and Burma. But when we found this, we showed it to the locals, and to our surprise, it is not a very rare snake in Nagaland. People locally know it. It's just that the scientists did not know it existed here. And then when we told the locals that we want to see it, they showed it to us very, very easy. This is the Mandarin trinket. The best part of my career and my life is to have my meals at places like this. This is one of the cleanest rivers in India. This is the Tizu River. If you fly a drone over it, you can actually see the base of the river, and no population at all. The closest village or closest human from this spot where we are actually having a lunch is 50 kilometers. So all around me is dense evergreen rainforest, and a river which is extremely clean, and lunch freshly being prepared by the side of the river. It had some lentils, it had some rice, and while we were setting up the lunch, our other field team, our local tribes, they were actually hunting fresh fish for the team to eat. In the meanwhile, while the team was catching fish the traditional way, I used this opportunity to go through my photographs, document them into my diary, and make notes. And then eventually, change has started coming here. Now the tribals have completely given up hunting. In fact, they guard their forest now. This is a picture. I was lucky to be a part of this when we had a raid on people from outside, not from Nagaland, who were hunting in the rainforest illegally. These girls, it was caught. They were handed over to the police later, and this wasn't would not have been possible if the locals were not a part of the photography, wildlife, and conservation program. Now that the forests are safe, the animals have started coming back. This is a picture of a Godzilla-like lizard on one of the trees. This picture I shot in, which is because I found this very, very beautiful. It is backlit by a torch that one of my local tribe members was using to find animals at night. This is the picture of the same lizard, proper exposure and proper lighting. This is another frog yet to be named. We don't know what to name it. Maybe one of you can come up with a cool name for it. And then one day, someone took me to show this very beautiful frog and photograph it. This is a frog of a, sorry, this is a picture of a very rare frog. The biggest flying frog in our country. It is called Rhacophus maximus. In winter, it is next to impossible to see them because they go into banana leaves and sleep inside them. So this is what happens. Social change comes. So I no longer look at myself as just a photographer. I think of myself as who create story into urban population like you guys through my pictures, and in local people through my pictures as well, by including them in my pictures. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. Hello, sir.
Yeah, sir. Uh, Sushil sir, thank you so much. Like, it's a lot of information for our students. And definitely there are students who are actually interested into wildlife, travel photography, and there is like how they can start or they can pursue their career. So this could be a kind of nice information for them, I hope. Thank you, sir, so much. Like, and yes, so we can open Alok sir. So shall we take questions from students now if they have anything? Yeah. So students yep. Yes, sir.
So guys, we are open for the questions. So please ask if you have any questions, or you can type it in the chat box also.
So this is a good opportunity. Yeah. Yeah.
Munish has typed something. Munish says, "Sir, did your one finger got chopped?"
No, so not none of my fingers luckily got chopped. I said half an hour more, and they would have had to chop all 10 fingers were going black. Basically, no blood circulation, they turn blue, then eventually black, and gangrene happens. That is how frostbite works. But luckily, my fingers could be recovered because I immediately was rushed to the hospital. But I'm happy that I've got a picture and I still have all 10 fingers of mine.
So, and how did you manage all the expenses while travel photograph?
Good. So this is something that a lot of people ask me. I was lucky that I had the right exposure because there were good people around me. I had good mentors who kept promoting my work to other people, to magazines. And that is how I started getting published. So currently I get paid from magazines, from production houses for whom I shoot. I also sell a lot to stock. And that is one way to make, like, all my gear, personal gear, which is quite a bit, has been paid for by stock photography as well. And then now I collaborate with a lot of other organizations that hire us on assignments. Like Nagaland trip was completely sponsored. In fact, they paid me to go and photograph animals there. So was the Red Panda expedition. So that is another way, which is endorsements.
So for like, if we want to get into travel photography, how do we start?
Okay, so one thing that you need to do is you can make your mark by winning some contests, by getting your pictures published in publication houses, may it be newspapers, may it be magazines, because what it does is it gets you a brand value that this guy is award-winning photographer. No matter how small the award, no matter how big is the award, eventually you can put that term in front of your name saying award-winning photographer. That gives you a lot of weightage in the market. The other thing that you can do is, a lot of my friends who are editors for top travel magazines, Panda, they actually put out notices on LinkedIn and their social media. So I would tell, not just to you, to all your batchmates, that don't just follow hot models on Instagram. Also follow some not so good looking people, because they might be actually a lot more influential than the models. Like, for example, recently Jyoti, who is the editor-in-chief for Condé Nast magazine. Now, this is the most expensive travel magazine in the world. She put up a notice, a story on Instagram, saying they want to hire 2 full-time travel photographers with a lump sum salary, like probably something like the beginners were getting around 50 to 70 grand a month, plus all the travel and other expenses are paid for. But surprisingly, nobody applied because nobody was following her, right? So follow the right people on social media, because there are a lot more people and a lot more bosses of top companies now are accessible on social media. Unlike previous times where these famous people are not accessible, they are very, very active on social media. So follow the right people. Also, you can check out their websites, because they put up these notices on all their social media handles and channels. And that is somewhere that you can apply, because they have short-term projects as well. They are long-term projects as well. The other thing that you can do is stock photography. Stock photography has a lot of money, but the problem is, you open Shutterstock, all you see is people from the West making a lot of money, not from India, because I think Indian artists are lazy. They spend too much time admiring their own art than doing something about it. And that's why they don't make as much money as the people in the West do. Although, if you ask me as a recruiter for a stock agency, there's a lot more demand from Indian content. If you look at any graphic designing company, they are tired of looking for Indian images. That's why you see all the hoardings with white people as well, right? Because they didn't find pictures of Indians in it. So do consider selling to stock agencies as well. And also, one thing that we are doing is what Anjali mentioned is the Journey Photography Club. You can consider being a part of it, because what we are trying to do is we are trying to solve exactly the problems that you mentioned. We have mentors who full-time guide people on how to sell their images. And also we try to create a gap, try to bridge the gap and bridge it by having regular monthly interactions for our members and the industry experts. Because like I said, I was lucky enough to have these people in my life. But a lot of people are not that lucky that they have the right people in their life to endorse them, to get them opportunity. And now that I'm in touch with all these big guys, I make sure they cannot refuse my phone call. And I request them to do monthly webinars for our team members. That is another way you can consider being a part of the club as well. Thanks.
Cool, sir. Thank you so much.
Sushil sir, we have a question from Azhar.
Yeah.
So he want to ask that which platform you use to showcase your work.
Okay. So Azhar, I use multiple platforms. One is my own Instagram. Other is Facebook. Third is 500 pixels, Flickr. Alok can actually also comment on that. Alok has his picture on all these platforms with me. But besides this, what happens is, with time, as my name started becoming known in the industry, eventually I started putting up the content on my own website. So what happens is, people across the world now buy my images directly through my website as well. But that is something that you should consider when people in the industry know you, because only then people will visit your website. So these are few other platforms where I promote my work. And obviously, like I said, contests. Sure, don't have this prestige and privilege issue where you think you're too cool to enter. enter contest. If not winning, you will actually learn something and get to find a lot more artists in the industry. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you,
So
sir.
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
So how did you started your career as you started in the presentation that you went for a short trip, but I
Right.
want to know how did you started how did you thought of being a wildlife and travel photographer in your
Right.
life?
So if you realize the first story, few of the animals that I ended up photographing, the pictures were so rare that no pictures, and they got published by default. Because that same year, a book was getting published, which is Snakes of India. Now that guy wanted a picture of the snake, and obviously I was the only person with a snake picture. That got published, and similar pictures. Also, I started as a student that time. I started keeping realistic goals, which are short-term goals. I used to read up a lot, and find subjects that people had not photographed around my city, because I know there's a lot of cash crunch. Parents don't support at times. It is expensive to travel. And I realized there are tons of things around Pune that I could photograph that nobody in the world had photographed. And what happened is, because these were the only pictures that time, when somebody wanted a picture, they by default got sold or published in the magazine at least. And that is how the career picked up. So once the pictures started getting published one by one, I started getting famous. Then opportunities started coming to me instead of me running behind them. And that is why I started the story by saying I never even wanted to become a photographer. It happened to me by accident.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so this is the actually very important thing. Like, if you have interest in your travel or wildlife uh, photography, so that time, like, you have to find something which is rare. That means it is
Yes.
unexplored.
Yes.
So that actually might help you to bring into the good position, I guess, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I totally agree with Bharat, sir. Because this is something that I tell to my students as well. Like Alok is my student here, Purva is a colleague of mine, and this is something that I tell my students as well. The problem with you guys is you're born a little late. क्योंकि तुम्हारे पहले you guys have photographed quite a bit. So what you need to do now is you have to pay more attention on the research part of your photograph. Like before you photograph, study what you should photograph and then step out, because that will maximize the result of what you're doing, because you will photograph stuff that is relevant. Because if something that has been done tons of time, then it anyways doesn't have a lot of value, and then you feel bad because you are not getting rejected because your content is bad. You're getting rejected because the content has already been used and published. So spend a little more time on research of your content before you actually step out.
Yeah. So I think there is one more question, Alok. And
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from the Alan that what gears you use and what is your favorite lens? Which
Oh, okay.
gears you carry?
So I have so DSLR wise, I'm a Canon user because I was the ambassador for some time. Then I got bored. Uh, so currently, I work with two. Also, they don't pay a lot nowadays. So yeah, and brands are becoming a little bit painful right now. So I only said no to them this year, unless they come up with a better deal for me, or I just shoot for some other brand. But right now, I have two camera bodies. One is a 60D, and I have a 5D Mark IV. I might soon move to R5, primarily because it is such a great camera. It can get you some good pictures, but at the same time also shoot 8K at 120 FPS. And recently Netflix, because I shoot for channels as well, Netflix recently has approved R5 for broadcast quality. So I'm thinking of investing in a R5. Besides that, lenses, I have tons. Yeah, I have a Renox filter. I have 50mm 1855 Canon Tokina 1116. I have a Rokinon 11mm, 14mm. Then in the tele lens for wildlife, I use 150-600. I actually don't like the prime lenses. So unlike what you think, I don't travel with a 500mm prime or a 600mm prime or a 800mm prime, because they are not flexible lenses. And in wildlife, this is something that I'm sure even Alok could be interacting with you a lot more, because he too does wildlife photography. Flexibility is very important. You cannot anticipate where the animal is going to show up. And if you have that restriction of focal length, At times you might have some great sightings happening in front of you, but you will fail to document it because of the drawbacks of your lens. So I like the flexibility of the Tamron 150-600 because it covers a great range of focal length. So that is what I use. Besides that, I use tons of action cameras, 4 or 5 different models of GoPro. Then we use some drones nowadays because that is something that new that I'm playing with, which is doing wildlife and travel photography using a drone and doing portraits using action cameras. So I do a lot of portraits with GoPro, and to everybody's surprise, I actually recently, like in the recent years, I realized something by accident, which is for portraits, people say 85 mm is great or 50 mm is great. My recent portraits of Nagaland that you saw were clicked with a 90 mm macro because that is such a sharp and crisp lens for so this is something that you need to do. You need to play around with your lens, wonder what your cameras and your gear can do, because this is something that happened by accident where I was wondering if this lens gets me such sharp images of insects, I wonder how it would do with humans, and it completely shocked me. So nowadays I in fact don't use my 50 mm anymore. I use my 90 mm for portraits. So yeah, those are few of the gears. Then we have a lot of video gear as well.
So have you tried astrophotography in Ladakh?
We do every year. Now it's not new. Now what's new for us is having a great foreground for my astro. Like for example, having the monastery also well lit or the Buddha statue well lit and the Milky Way behind him. Because the standard Milky Way, we've done this almost a decade back. So I'm not even surprised when I see them anymore. And trust me, you don't need a wide angle lens for it. You can do it with your 1855 as well. That's how I shot my first astro pictures. Because anyways, you have to put it on a tripod or a beanbag or some surface anyways, right? So you don't need a full frame camera for it. Your basic crop bodies with a 1855 mm lens are good enough for you to get a good astro picture.
Okay.
So we have one question from Monish that which drone you are using?
Drone. So when I personally fly, I fly a Mavic Air and a Mavic Pro. The reasons I personally prefer the Mavic Air is basically it is easy to carry, and technically, as per the aeronautical department, it does not come under any category of registration because this is being India and our officials are a little dumb. They didn't make policies wisely. They should have made the policies on the basis of the quality of the cameras that these drones have and the range to which they fly. But instead of that, they made categories on the basis of the weight. So because this this drone is very light, it comes under a category called micro. This is a category that does not have to be registered with the local corps. But it is registered with the aeronautical department because DJI has an inbuilt software which syncs with the government app. And it is easy to carry. It comes in technically in your camera pouch, it fits. But when I shoot for brands, like when I was shooting Meghalaya for Canon, when they were launching the new C300 Cine camera, that time we were flying the DJI Inspire because you can mount your DSLRs onto it. But those are mainly when we are shooting for brands. Personally, I prefer Mavic Air and
So one more question.
Yeah.
What will you say the best experience in the travel field?
I can't have one, yeah, because you saw so many stories, they keep happening to me all the time. So that's why I keep looking forward to the next best story. Because there are just unending stories like these. I don't have one favorite of mine.
Okay, guys, so we are running short of time now. So we will call Sushil sir one more time again to
sure.
to give highlight on many other things as well.
Yes.
So so one more question, last question, I think Manish is asking, what is your next project?
So next project, actually it's a long list. So next week or probably a week after that, I am flying to Panda Tiger Reserve. We are shooting a film there and photographing there. In fact, I'm doing a workshop for upcoming cinematographers there for a brand called Impact Society. So we are doing a documentary filmmaking workshop for them. I will finish that. From there, I'll directly fly to Ladakh, where I'm spending 1 month. So 1 month I'll be in Ladakh. From there, I go to Sikkim for 15 days. And from there, I go to Nagaland with the BBC team to do a web series on the headhunters. So yeah, a long 3-month list. Finally, after being stuck at home for 3 months, I'm getting to step out for 3 months now. So I'm looking forward to that.
So that is the privilege what travel and wildlife photographer get,
Yes, sir.
which
Yes,
we
sir.
usually commercial photographers don't get this much
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
flexibility.
Yeah, and the best part is even with the lockdown, all the departments give you the letters to do it. Because I'm flying in prime lockdown, and good thing is all the forest departments are sending official letters saying I'm on government duty. So the cars are also government cars. So yeah, good thing about that.
So that's a great thing actually.
Yes, sir.
With this genre of photography. So I hope lot of students, everyone got like good insight into this genre, and for more this kind of thing, we will keep continuing through our club. So Naman, I think you can take it up.
Yes. So, dear participants, I extend a big thanks on behalf of SPC and Seamedu Photography Club and School of Pro Expressionism to join with us on this wonderful event. I hope you have been enriched with this knowledge and experience shared by our guest mentor Sushil sir. We Seamedu Photography Club wants your continued support and participation. Till then, I cannot say that thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for hosting me so much. It was great
Thank you,
talking to all
Sushil
of you.
sir, for coming as well. It was a really event.
Was great.
I loved interacting with all of you. I look forward to meeting all of you very, very soon. In case any of you have any more doubts, please feel free to send a DM on my Instagram and we can talk there as well. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sushil sir.
Very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys. I'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay,
you so
Bala
much, Sushil sir.